Welcome to the Daily Insider here on VegasInsider.com. Kevin Rogers with you, and we have reached the month of July, finally. And the NBA Finals now has one participant, the Phoenix Suns. We'll talk about that in just a second, after they blew out the LA Clippers last night to win the Western Conference title for the first time since 1993. And the Suns will face either the Bucks or the Hawks, and that is going to be interesting since Game 5 is tonight in Milwaukee. And Giannis Antetokounmpo, doubtful. Trae Young's status still up in the air. And we got plenty of baseball to go over. But first, I want to remind you about the Daily Insider Contest, which we have every day here on the show. And it's very easy to enter. All you have to do is put your Vegas Insider user ID in the comments section below this video, along with your best bet for the day. Now, it can be Major League Baseball, NBA, NHL, well, no NHL tonight, and WNBA. It could be any of that, and it could be a player prop bet if you want, a first five-inning bet in baseball. It could be a first half bet in the NBA, a first quarter bet in the NBA, as long as it's not a live bet. It's got to be before the game. And if you win your bet, you'll be in the running for a week's worth of handicapper picks of one handicapper of your choosing on VegasInsider.com, $100 value for free. And you'll be in the drawing for that if you win your best bet. And if you're a first-time watcher to this video, first of all, we welcome you. But if you do not have a Vegas Insider user ID, it's easy to get. Just click on the big yellow register button in the upper right-hand corner, and this will lead you to the free membership register now page. Click on that and create an ID and a password. Put your email address, first and last name, and phone number, and you'll be all set to go. And you can participate in our contest on VegasInsider.com. And we look forward to having you participate in that contest. Now, let us take a look at the NBA. We're going to start with that. And last night, the Phoenix Suns, they took care of business. They knocked out the LA Clippers 130-103, a game that the under was never threatened. You see the first quarter, 62 points, then 61 in the second, and pretty much cruise control from there. And when you have a total like that, you get a few 60s out of the gate, and you're going to be in really good shape. And after the Suns and Clippers had a couple of unders from games 2 through 4, they hit the over in games 5 and 6. And the LA Clippers, they did as well as they could, considering that their superstar was out, Kawhi Leonard. And Paul George is not at superstar level. He's still an excellent player in the NBA, but he can only do so much when he doesn't have a guy like Kawhi Leonard on his side. And Kawhi was out with that knee injury. He missed the final game, 2 games of the Utah series. He missed all 6 games in the Phoenix series, so 8 games in total that Kawhi sat out. And the Clippers, they have a lot of veterans on their team, a lot of guys that have been around, but it just wasn't enough against this Phoenix team. And Chris Paul finally broke through and is going to be in the NBA Finals. It took a long time for him to do it, but he finally got there. And in spite of a little bit of a dust-up last night between he and Patrick Beverley at the end of that game, and Beverley shoved Chris Paul from behind, in case you missed that. I mean, totally uncalled for. There's no reason for that. But Chris Paul gets the last laugh in the end, and he's headed to the NBA Finals. And Phoenix, who was down 2-1 to the Lakers in the first round, and it looked like maybe they would get knocked out. They got some good fortune with Anthony Davis getting hurt in that series. Phoenix won the final 3 there, swept Denver, and took 4 of 6 from the Clippers, and they avoided facing Kawhi Leonard. Look, we've talked about this throughout this NBA playoffs, and you've heard it probably a lot of places, that I know a lot of people think that you're not going to get a real NBA champion here, that somehow everyone has an excuse. The Phoenix Suns missed Anthony Davis for a few games. They missed Kawhi for a few games. The Bucks didn't have to face Kyrie Irving for a few games. James Harden wasn't at 100%. And then they get Atlanta instead of Philadelphia, and Trae Young gets hurt. But then, you look at Atlanta, you say, well, now Giannis is hurt, But no matter what Atlanta does, they still that Phoenix. I just don't think that's crazy to think. But look, they didn't have to play Utah, but again, this is what it is at this point. That it's not going to be perfection. That you're going to face all the top teams, and then you're going to win the title because you beat all the top teams. They didn't get Utah. They're not going to get Philadelphia in the finals, and they're not going to get Brooklyn in the finals. If they get Milwaukee, so be it. If they get Atlanta, so be it. Then that's just this is what it is, with this season. But the Phoenix Suns, though, I think that they did not want to get in a situation where even coming back home for Game 7 where they would be favored against the Clippers, that they didn't want to do that. The Suns end up winning that game, and they don't have to worry about a Game 7. They can rest now. They have a few days off because Atlanta-Milwaukee plays Game 5 tonight. They play Game 6 or guaranteed a Game 6 coming up on Saturday, and then potentially a Game 7 on Monday. So the Suns will be off until at least at the earliest Tuesday they would play, assuming Milwaukee or Atlanta wins the next 2 games. So at least there's a little bit of a break for the Suns. And you know what? They had a break for a few days in the or after the Denver series, and then it turned out that Chris Paul missed the first 2 games due to COVID issues, but Chris Paul is back and he's fine now. All right, now tonight, let's look at this game and Atlanta-Milwaukee. About 2.5 hours ago, I taped the best bet video for the Bucks and the Hawks, and I did it today because I didn't know what Giannis' status was yesterday, and Trae Young is still questionable. But we know that Giannis is doubtful tonight. He's probably not going to play. And if you're Milwaukee, there's really no reason to rush Giannis in there. I really believe deep down the pressure's on Atlanta, not at Milwaukee. The pressure. And then come back and win the next 2 and be fine. The Hawks lose tonight. Now they got to win 2, even though they're coming home. I just don't think that's going to happen. If they lost tonight, I don't think they're winning the final 2. I just don't see that. Now, if they win tonight, obviously they're in really good shape, Atlanta. But that number went from 2 earlier today, now to 2.5, now to 3. I guess we're assuming that Trae Young is not going to play. But again, I thought Trae Young would play in Game 4, and they found out before the game that he wasn't going to play about an hour before, where, now I'm saying he's not going to play. He could play. But Giannis probably won't play tonight. There's no reason to rush Giannis back. Let Giannis have a few more days if he's not right and see what happens. Now, I think the good thing that happened for Milwaukee in Game 4 was them just getting, because there's no excuse about Giannis playing, and we could have won that game if Giannis stayed the whole game. They were down 25 when Giannis got hurt, so it's okay that they ended up losing that game because it was done with. It just stinks that Giannis got hurt, but they didn't play well. Atlanta got the win without Trae Young. Now, Atlanta total, I think it's very tough to gauge without Giannis in there. Looking back at some of the games this year that Giannis didn't play, there was overs. There was a couple high-scoring games. Milwaukee has the ability to score, even without Giannis. It's just about hitting your shots. And when Chris Middleton was 0 for three-point range in Game 4, Drew Holiday has struggled from the floor. Those guys hit shots. Milwaukee's got a chance to win a high-scoring game. Even 215 is not nuts, considering you had, 226 earlier in the series. So I think the Hawks and Bucks can do it without the superstars. It's just about hitting your shots. They have shooters on both sides. I do lean towards Milwaukee, though, that they are 6-1 at home in the playoffs. I know Atlanta's played well on the road so far in the postseason. I just can't see. Passing up this number is hard. Milwaukee will be a short favorite against Phoenix at home if Milwaukee ends up winning the East. But to get Milwaukee as this short of favorite against a team like Atlanta and the potential of Trae Young not playing, cancel out Trae Young and Giannis, and they're laying just 3 at home, I'll lay. I will, and not think twice about it. Let's look at the NHL quickly before we get to baseball. Nothing today. Last night, 3-1 win for, and that really helped them. It put them up ahead 2-1. They got a late goal. They win 3-1, and now that's 2 straight puck line victories for Tampa Bay. They're up 2-0 on Montreal, and you wonder if this is just a foregone conclusion for the Lightning, if they'll end up pulling off a sweep or winning in 5 games against this Montreal team. And Montreal has been a great story, we know, but Tampa Bay's just a buzzsaw. You know, they're the defending champions, and they played extremely well so far during this Stanley Cup run. And unfortunately, for as bad as it sounds, and I said this yesterday, this is probably the weakest team that the Lightning are facing in the postseason. And they get them in the Stanley Cup final. But Tampa Bay, on the flip side, you know, we talk about in the NBA all the injuries and all these teams. This team avoided this avoided that. Tampa Bay, though, I just got to say this about the Lightning. They didn't have to face Boston. They didn't have to face Pittsburgh. They didn't have to face Washington. They didn't have to face Vegas. They didn't have to face Colorado. They didn't have to face Toronto. They drew the Panthers in the first round, who they were better than. They drew Carolina, who totally overachieved this season. And they got the Islanders, who were the 4th place team in their division. They still won 7 games with the Islanders. And they faced Montreal as a 4th place team. So they got 2 4th place teams, a 3rd place team, and a 1st place team. So Tampa Bay is not going to apologize for a Stanley Cup again this year, but let's not make it out to be that the Lightning are better than all the teams they're playing, clearly. Could Tampa Bay beat Vegas? Yes. Could Tampa Bay beat Colorado? Yes. Could Tampa Bay beat Pittsburgh? Yes. But I want to see them do it. And that's where it's a little bit sticky how this thing has turned out for the Lightning, considering, look, I know that they're one of the best teams in the league, but you would have liked to see them play some better teams throughout. But again, we can't change that, and just got to deal with it. All right, let's look at Major League Baseball. A lot of afternoon games today. We're going to start with the American League and then go backwards. Angels-Yankees got washed out, so if you had a bet on that game, it's null and void. They're going to make up the game later in the season. But just quickly about last night between the Angels and the Yankees, that just an unbelievable turn of events. I mean, you had 2 games yesterday. That Cubs-Brewers game, Chicago up 7-0 after their first at-bat, and then they allow 15 unanswered runs to Milwaukee. Think about that. So if you had the Brewers on the run line even, or actually let me flip that around. If you had the Cubs in the run line, you know, plus 1.5, and you're up 7-0, you're like, oh, wow, this game is over. Just shut it off. You lose by 8 runs. That's terrible. But then you look at the Angels-Yankees, and Shohei Ohtani started for the Angels in the mound last night. A very, this was a very anticipated game for him. He's hit a couple home runs in the series, and now he's on the mound, and he can't get out of the first inning. Angels get 2 in the top of the first. Yankees get 7 in the bottom of the first, and you think this thing is over if you stopped at that point. It was 8-3, 7 runs in the top of the 9th inning to win 11-8. So you were, again, if you had the Angels, you're dead in the water, and then they get 7 runs in the 9th inning, which is insane. So you had 2 huge comebacks yesterday in Major League Baseball, and again, it's very frustrating. It's a very frustrating sport out of all the sports, just because, look, anything can happen. The old, oh, well, this could happen in this game, but, chances are in In the NFL, you're not going to be up 35-10 with 3 minutes left and lose. It's just not going to happen that way. Where in Major League Baseball, without the clock, you got to get the outs. So you could be down by 8 runs in the ninth and still hypothetically win. Chances are you won't, but you still have a chance. But in the NFL, you're not going to be down 28 with 2 minutes left and win. Like, that's just not going to happen. It doesn't work like that. I mean, you're going to be down 28 with 10 minutes to go, and you're probably not going to win. But, in baseball, these things happen, and the Angels end up winning that game against the Yankees. So they end up taking 2 of 3, and now the series over because they got rained out today. So the first games of the day, Seattle and Toronto, they meet in Buffalo, and the Mariners end up beating the Blue Jays last night 9-7, and they win it in 10 innings. So Seattle is a heavy underdog last night. They end up with the victory, and this afternoon, Yusei Kikuchi goes for Seattle, and Hyunjin Ryu goes for Toronto. So Kikuchi from Japan and Ryu from Korea. So those are the pitchers on the mound today. So obviously in Asia, this is going to be a very, there's going to be a lot of interest in this game today with these two pitchers going. And let's first take a look at the Mariners, who they've one more win than the Blue Jays. I mean, that's just crazy to me. But for Kikuchi, he's actually pitched really well this season because his first 2 years he struggled a bit, and now he's kind of getting it together. 5-3 record, 3.34 ERA, and his last 2 starts, actually look back, his last 3 starts, he's allowed a total of 2 earned runs. In one of those, the Mariners bullpen blew it, a 4-0 lead, and Cleveland came back and won. Then the Mariners beat the Rays, and they beat the White Sox. So he's faced some good competition of late, and he's actually been pretty good for the Mariners. Ryu off a win his last time out against Baltimore. And Ryu, in his last 7 starts, he's hit the over 6 times. So that's something to watch out for, even though it's a high total today of 10 up in Buffalo. Now, the other 1 o'clock game, it's the Royals and the Red Sox. And Boston, again, a huge favorite. Kansas City's lost now 8 in a row, and this is the final game of their disastrous road trip. They won the first game at New York, lost the next 2, got swept at Texas, and they've lost 3 at Boston. 2 games by a run, but then last night they lose 6-2 to the Red Sox, and Boston's heading out west after this game today, and they're trying to go for a perfect 7-0 homestand. And Nathan Eovaldi goes, he lost to the Royals last time. He faced him, Chris Bubich for Kansas City, and he struggled. I mean, the Royals, for them to, again, lose 11 straight at one point and now ride another 8-game losing streak, it's just amazing, like how they've had so many issues so far in the year. But Boston at 50-31, but they're laying a heavy number today. At 2:10, it's the White Sox and the Twins from Chicago. White Sox 5-0 at home against the Twins this season. They blew them out again last night, 13-3. And Jose Barrios comes in. Minnesota was on a 7-0 run with him on the mound before they lost his last time out against Cleveland, 4-1. A game that was 1-1 going to the 8th before Cleveland scored 3 in the top of the 8th, so not Barrios' fault. But Chicago's caught fire of late. They've scored 27 runs the last 3 games. Twins have taken a step back now after winning a few in a row. Now they've lost 2 straight. And Carlos Rodon goes for the White Sox, and he continues to have a great season, even though he's winless his last 2 starts. But the White Sox favored there against the Twins. The A's and the Rangers, that's a 3:40 first pitch out in Oakland. Sean Manaea, he's winless his last 2 starts for Oakland, even though they're both low-scoring games in losses to the Yankees and Giants, but Oakland's offense scored only 1 run in those 2 games. And Dane Dunning for Texas, he has struggled in his first season with the Rangers, came over from the White Sox in the Lance Lynn deal, and Dunning actually picked up a win his last time out against Kansas City. Texas had their 4-game winning streak snapped at Oakland last night. They've won 5 of 7 now, so they're playing a little bit better. But Oakland, they've lost 4 straight off a win, so something to keep an eye on. They won last night over Texas 3-1. The night game tonight in the American League, it's Houston and Cleveland, and first time they're meeting up in a few seasons, in fact. And the Astros, off the unexpected Orioles. So the Orioles had that long road losing streak, and then the Orioles cash as plus 250 or higher dogs in all 3 games against Houston. Second time this year the Astros have been swept at home by a dog, by the Orioles, by the Tigers, and you just kind of wonder, how does this 4 in a row all of a sudden? I guess everybody has their slumps in Major League Baseball. Cleveland off a 7-1 loss or last night, the Indians and Tigers, they played a doubleheader in Cleveland, and the Indians, they try to take advantage of playing the teams like the Tigers and the Royals, and they've done a good job against them. But unfortunately for the Indians, they lost 2 to the Tigers. They lost 9-4 and 7-1. So I don't really know how you explain that one if you're Cleveland, because they had played well against those types of teams this season. And the Indians, again, still in the mix in the American League Central. Chicago's in control of the division. And then it's Cleveland, because Minnesota was terrible out of the gate. Detroit, they're obviously rebuilding, and Kansas City's had too many losing streaks. But Cleveland, we'll see if they can bounce back tonight. You're a heavy dog there against the Astros. Now let's go back up to the National League, because everything is coming up at night this evening. Marlins and Phillies, and the Marlins ended up, they beat the Phillies last night with Aaron Nola on the mound. In fact, the Phillies were up 4-1 in that game, and the Marlins ended up coming back to beat the Phillies. So the first game of that series, the Marlins were a slight favorite with Trevor Rogers, and they lost 4-3 last night. They're a heavy dog, and they went 11-6. So the Marlins, what's so funny about the Marlins is you talk about feast or famine with them. So going back through the last, this is really interesting, the last half a month for the Marlins, out of their 5 wins, 4 times they've scored 10 runs or more. And another win, they won 3-2 over the Nationals. So basically the point is, the Marlins, they can bust out, but when they score less than 10 runs, they don't win. They're not winning a lot of low-scoring games, because the low-scoring games, they're losing 4-3, 3-1, 2-1, 2-0, 1-0, 2-1, 4-2. But the high-scoring games, 10-2, 11-1, 11-2, 11-6. So when the Marlins can bust out, hey, they got a good chance of winning because they can score a lot of runs, but they're not going to win a pitcher's duel. So that's kind of where you got to be careful with them. Pablo Lopez goes for them this evening. 2.87 ERA. He's pitched well his last 2 times out. He did pick up a no decision against the Phillies last time he faced them back in late May. He was laying almost 140, but he went 7 innings, allowed 2 earned runs. So now you're getting him as a dog against Zach Eflin, who actually looked good his last time out against the Mets, but the Phillies bullpen blew it. Eflin went opposite Jacob deGrom. 6 innings, an earned run, but he ended up getting a no decision because the Phillies were up 3-2 going to the 9th, and the Mets scored 2 off the Phillies bullpen, who blew another save, and Eflin didn't end up getting the win there, so it was too bad for him. But the Phillies favorite there, number 7.5, and again, feast or famine with the Marlins this year at the plate. Dodgers and Nationals tonight. They've met a lot in the playoffs over the years, and the Dodgers favored here. Tony Gonsolin goes for L.A., Patrick Corbin for Washington, and L.A. seeking its 50th win on the season. They're coming off that 2-game sweep of San Francisco, so they got a couple games on the Dodgers, and now they've won 5 in a row. So L.A., what's so funny is they've had ups and downs, but still they're 49-31. And they're riding a 5-game winning streak now going out east. They got the Nationals and Marlins on this trip. Their last road series, they lost all three at San Diego. So we'll see how that changes. The Nationals have won 4 in a row. They just took 2 from Tampa Bay. They scored 15 runs in last night's victory, or the afternoon game against the Rays. Patrick Corbin, he takes the mound for Washington. And Corbin, he's pitched a little better. I know the ERA is bad, 5.33, but he's been better of late. He's allowed 6 earned runs his last 3 starts. So that's somewhat of a positive. But last time these teams hooked up in L.A., Dodgers took all 3. That was back in early April. Corbin was on the losing end of a 9-5 defeat to the Dodgers in the second game of that series. So L.A. swept Washington earlier in the year at Dodger Stadium. Now the Dodgers favored again here tonight. Milwaukee is at Pittsburgh, and mentioned the Brewers, that big comeback they had against the Cubs yesterday. Down 7-0. They scored 15 in a row to win 15-7. Now they go to Pittsburgh and they face the Pirates. And the Pirates were just swept by the Rockies. They scored 2 runs in the entire series. They scored 2 runs in the first inning and then couldn't score again. Now, Milwaukee, they're off this perfect homestand against the Rockies and Cubs. Now they get Pittsburgh, who's been awful. But I want to give you this number. Milwaukee in road series openers this year, they played 13 of them. They're 3-10. So, yes, Milwaukee is laying a ton, but they are 3-10 in road series openers. Corbin Burns has lost his last 2 road starts as a heavy favorite at Colorado and Kansas City. So, tread lightly. Will Crowe has pitched better for Pittsburgh, which they had in St. Louis, just not in Colorado, which is kind of odd. But Milwaukee off this big homestand. Now you're going to Pittsburgh rather. Let's see what happens with the Brewers if they can keep their offense going. San Diego's at Cincinnati. The Padres have not lost to the Reds this year in 6 meetings, and San Diego won a shortened game last night against Cincinnati. If you had the over, you didn't win because the game didn't go 8.5 innings. So sorry about that, even though the game was over the total when the rain hit. But the Reds, though, turned to Luis Castillo. And Castillo's actually been better since a time he faced him at Petco Park. But Castillo's pitched a little bit better for Cincinnati. Ryan Weathers goes for the Padres. Reds haven't been good against left-handed pitchers, but Weathers may not go long because he doesn't normally go long in these games. So we'll see how that turns out. But the money's flipped on that one, and the Reds are favored against San Diego. Jacob deGrom goes for New York tonight, and he continues a fantastic season. He's a heavy favorite opposite Ian Anderson. Anderson beat the Mets in New York when these teams hooked up in June. deGrom won the first game of a 7-inning doubleheader. Anderson won the second game. Braves, though, 0-3 in Anderson's last 3 starts as an underdog, so keep that in mind. But deGrom, ERA of under 1. Again, he kind of got off the hook in the last game against the Phillies. That was pitched well, but the Phillies got a few runs. They got one off the bullpen, and the Mets came back and won that game. So deGrom, he didn't get the win, but his numbers are still, they're through the roof. And the Mets lost last night to the Braves 20-2. So you think the Mets will be a little bit motivated tonight to face Atlanta. St. Louis and Colorado, and the Cardinals actually, they've won a few in a row. So congratulations, a win tonight. They'll be back at 500. The Rockies, they swept the Pirates 28-16 now at Coors Field for Colorado. And St. Louis did sweep Colorado at Busch Stadium earlier this season. But again, take that with a grain of salt considering Colorado's the worst road team in the league. Adam Wainwright's pitched well of late for St. Louis. He beat Colorado at home in that series. He's won his last 4 starts, the Cardinals have won his last 4 starts. Antonio Senzatella goes for Colorado. They're undefeated in his last 3 home starts, but 2 of those wins came against Texas and Arizona, so tread lightly there. But again, Colorado, 4 straight unders. They hit all 3 unders against Pittsburgh, and another high total tonight. And we'll see if St. Louis, and also by the way, so we'll see how that how he plays after his long tenure with the Rockies. He wanted to get out of there, and he goes to the Cardinals. So now he plays back in front of the Coors Field crowd this evening. San Francisco and Arizona, they meet out at Chase Field tonight, and the Giants, the Giants off that 2-game losing streak to the Dodgers. Arizona back at home. Arizona's been god-awful this year. They were just swept by the Cardinals on the road. And Merrill Kelly actually, off of a pretty good performance in his last start, that came against San Diego, that snapped the long road losing streak. He was a plus 225 dog, and he helped beat the Padres 10-1. Arizona's won his last 2 starts. He's allowed 1 earned run in that span. So give him credit on that. He hasn't beaten the Giants this year. Johnny Cueto goes for San Francisco. For Cueto, though, he's been good of late, coming off a couple home wins against the Phillies and the A's. I mean, look, for Cueto, he's had a bit of a nice comeback season after he was hurt last year. 6-3 record, 3.63 ERA, and now he's favored. And again, if you want to trust Arizona on the road or at home, or just trust Arizona anywhere they're playing, good luck to you. So, with all that, don't forget the Euro 2020 continues tomorrow, and you have Belgium, Italy, Switzerland, Spain. They are meeting up, and you can catch those previews from Toby Maxstone-Smith, as well as tonight's Hawks-Bucks Game 5 preview. Still don't know what Trae Young's condition is, and you can still find Mike Dempsey's horse racing picks for today, as well as the NASCAR for this weekend. Michael Roberts has his preview up. And again, the Daily Insider Contest, I want to remind you about. That's very easy to enter. Put up your Vegas Insider user ID along with your best bet for the day, Major League Baseball, NBA, not today, NHL, because there's no hockey tonight. They're back tomorrow. But put up your best bet. It could be a player prop bet, a side, a total, a first 5-inning play, a first half play in the NBA. And if you win, you'll be in the running for a week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper of your choosing on VegasInsider.com. So I want to just remind you about that. If you do not have a Vegas Insider user ID, that's no big deal. You just go to the big yellow register button in the upper right-hand corner, free membership, register now. Click on that, create a password, ID, put up your email address and first and last name so we can find you, and you'll be all set. Put the Vegas Insider user ID along with the best bet of the day in the comment section below, and then you'll be in the running for the prize, the week's worth of handicapper picks from one handicapper on VegasInsider.com. I am Kevin Rogers. Thank you so much for tuning into today's edition of the Daily Insider.